Chapter 7. This is not good. This is not good at all, Max mumbled to himself, combing his fingers through his thick hair. He didn't know what he should do. Should he go downstairs to see if it was Chris who had gone into the basement and had left the door open? If that were the case, then he was overreacting. He was about to take a step onto the stairs when fear made him bring his foot back. He couldn't muster the courage to go any further. Instead, he opened his mouth to speak, but his vocal cords appeared frozen, unable to move to produce a sound. He cleared his voice and was finally able to ask, "Chris, are you in the basement?" At first, there was utter silence, but then he heard a light tapping. He breathed a sigh of relief. His tense muscles relaxed. It was Chris who had opened the door and had gone downstairs. "What are you doing, Chris?" he asked, curious what his big brother was doing down there. Chris didn't respond. The only sound Max heard was the tapping that had never ceased. It went from 1 tap per second to 2, then 3. It increased in volume, becoming more urgent as if it were coming closer. He took a step back and almost swallowed his tonsils when he gulped deeply. He swung the door shut and blocked it with his body while he leaned his back against it. He was going to make sure whatever was making the sound couldn't get through the door. But after a minute, everything calmed. The tapping noise had ceased. He placed his ear against the door. When he heard nothing else, he figured it was the best time to run into Chris's room for help. He let go of the doorknob and darted to his brother's door. He didn't knock before entering. He shouted, "There is someone in the basement." Chris, who was busy focusing his camera outside the window at the old orchard tree in the garden, jumped. "Holy cow! Max, you scared me half to death." Then he frowned and said sternly, "Wait a second. Who said you could barge into my room without knocking? This isn't your room." And there was no time for me to knock. Max pointed toward the basement. "There's someone downstairs." "Yes. This is my room for the next 2 weeks. He paused before adding, "Max, there's no one downstairs. Grandma is in her room with the physiotherapist." "I thought you were going to stop with all the paranoia." Anger churned in Max's stomach while fear made his heart drum chaotically against his chest. "I'm not being paranoid. I swear someone is in the basement. I closed the basement door when I headed into the kitchen. And when I came back, it was open. Then I started hearing tapping sounds coming from downstairs." "You heard tapping?" Chris rubbed his eyes as if he was getting fed up with Max's theatrics. Max wanted to scream. Why wasn't his brother believing him? It's not like Max had a habit of crying wolf to get attention from his big brother. Chris should have realized this was real and not a wild story Max was making up. "There must be a logical explanation for all of it," Chris answered. He walked to the hallway and opened the door only slightly before shutting it. Then, without twisting the doorknob, he pulled it toward him. The latch clicked and it opened. With a smug smile, Chris proclaimed, "The door's latch is faulty and it doesn't close completely. Can easily open on its own with no effort." Max saw he was losing what little faith his brother had in him. Hoping to change his mind, he responded, "But that doesn't explain the tapping I heard." "No, it doesn't. But I'm sure there's something perfectly normal, not paranormal, to explain it. Let's go downstairs and see what it is." Max crossed his arms over his chest defensively and shook his head. "There is no way I'm going down there." Chris shrugged and took a step onto the stairs. "Suit yourself." Max grabbed his arm. "Don't go down there, Chris. Could be dangerous." Chris laughed. "Well, if you hear me scream, come running to save me." "This isn't funny," Max argued. "Whatever," Chris grumbled, loosening Max's firm grip off of his arm, and began to descend. Max held his breath and perked his ears, ready to react at a second's notice. His brother disappeared from his sight when he landed on the last step. Max heard him walking around. A moment later, Chris peeked his head at the bottom of the staircase. "Just like I said, there's no one down here. It's all safe. Now, come on down here." Max raised his hands in the air. "No, that's all right. I'll take your word for it." Chris shrugged. "I want you to come down here." He held up his camera hanging around his neck. "I want to take your picture now, so I can work on it later tonight." "What? You want to take it now?" His voice cracked. "Yes, it's the perfect time. Come on. Can't we do it later?" Or maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow is no good. I have more pictures to take outside. We could do it tonight if you want. But that means you'll have to come down here at nighttime when there is no sunlight. Max had heard enough. Okay, I'm coming down. He slowly descended, keeping his eyes and ears alert to any unusual sound or movement. When he got to the bottom of the steps, Chris motioned behind him. See, there's no one here. Nothing to worry about. There may be nothing to worry about this second, but that could all change in an instant. Yeah. Can we get on with this? Max said. Chris huffed. Fine. Let's do this. He pointed to the shadowed corner of the basement where a dartboard hung on the wall. Stand there and look to the side. Like you're deep in thought. Max followed his instructions while he felt a chill seeping into his bones. Hurry up. It's cold down here. Chris took a shot. Max moved out of position. He started to head to the stairs. Now I'm leaving and going to read. Not yet, Chris said, frowning. There's a problem. He was looking at the camera screen. What is it? Max asked, coming beside him to look at the picture on the tiny screen. There's something that ruined the photo right there. He pointed to the corner of the screen at the shadows. Max's eyes widened and he gasped. Two glowing eyes, just like the ones he'd seen in the darkness the first time Chris had opened the basement door, were staring at him in the image.